Can you just tell me one? Can you hear me? No. Standard response is no, right? So, all right, we've got Eric Hovde here, and thanks to Ann for kind of inviting him in, and Nathaniel for setting it up, and Eric's going to tell us a little bit about, he has MS also, and he's kind of had some pretty interesting experiences and some pretty interesting journey, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his journey of living with MS, and he's also been a very generous supporter of our MS Just Keep Moving, and we all need to thank him for that.
Thank you. Hey, it's great being here today. Seriously, I'm really enjoying this, and it's nice meeting everybody that I've met, and for those that I haven't, I hope to get to shake your hands. So let me start first with my MS journey, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about, my routines and all the rest, and then I'll get into research and what we've learned, because I've been deeply involved in the field of MS research for over 30 years. So first, I got diagnosed at 27 in May of 1991. I probably had optic neuritis at first, and when a year earlier they couldn't figure out what it was, and it went away. And then I had a heel that became numb, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, at that point in time, I was dating a woman who was very sensitive to MS because her best friend's father had MS, and every day after school, her and her best friend would go to take care of her friend's father, who eventually passed from MS in his late 40s. So she said, "You have to go see a neurologist." I would have never gone seeing a neurologist, but she insisted, and I went and saw a neurologist, and lo and behold, I have MS. I remember, being stunned like everybody is when you get that diagnosis, particularly when you're 27 years old, and at that point I was 225 pounds, pretty much of muscles. I trained in the martial arts, and I was very fit, and I was like, what the heck? And your earth comes out from under you, and what does this mean? And I remember asking him about exercise, and he said, well, you got to be careful because you may overheat yourself, and so you don't want to do it too much. And I remember walking out of it. I still remember this thought of saying, that sounds so stupid. I'm going to make myself as healthy as I possibly can be. And thankfully, it's probably one of the big issues why I've done so well with MS for as long as I have, because I've had a couple neurologists look at my MRI scans and say, wow, I would have thought you would have had a lot more disability given the amount of lesions you have in your brain and spinal cord than you do. Somebody's looking out after you. And I've always thought I've always kept moving, and I do. My wife will tell you there's no commitment I make more than to exercising literally every day of my life. That is, I do it in my mornings. I work out for typically anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. I have, as we get older, it takes I always laugh. I'm doing a workout to warm up my body before I do my heavy lifting or do whatever I'm doing, if I'm going to go play tennis or whatever. And then the stretch and the cool down and all of that. But exercise has always been a big part of my life. But unfortunately, during my 30s, I had a number of relapses. And as I was sharing, I used to pray to God, just give me till 40 so my daughter can know the man that I was. Well, God has a funny way of operating, because not only did he give me till 40, but at 40 my MS really fundamentally changed for me. I decided to take a quasi-year off because I was kind of a workaholic building my companies, and I was burnt out, and I was tired of living in pain all the time with my MS. Because by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my head, my feet, my legs, all the rest, I always had sensory issues. So I took this year off work from my home, and I wanted to go do 3 big adventure trips. So my first one is I went to the heart of the Amazon with one of my best friends, who was an airborne Army Ranger. So we were in the Amazon swimming with piranhas, eating armadillos, all this crazy stuff. I come out of the Amazon, and you're probably thinking, where's the story going? I'll get to it. So I come out of the Amazon, and about a month later, I'm realizing I'm not having any MS pains, but I'm having these pains in my lymph nodes and my joints. So I went and saw all kinds of doctors. They couldn't figure out what it was. Finally, my normal doctor just said, I think you got to go see a specialist in tropical diseases because you're in the Amazon, and my guess is you got something there. Well, I went and saw this doctor. I was living in DC at the time that took care of the State Department, the CIA, military people that travel all over the world. He had me go, here's a cup, go poo in it and bring it back. Well, lo and behold, I had 2 parasites, E. histolytica and Giardia. Well, during that 6 months it took to figure out that, and then I went on antiparasitics, my MS went in just total remission. And literally, it probably reset my MS, where for the next 20 plus years, up until a year ago, my MS was pretty much, other than a couple little mini relapses in my 40s, and really my 50s, I had no symptoms at all. I was free of my MS. Ironically, my MS doctor told me a year before I ran for the Senate, about 3 years ago, you're in the clear, you've been stable for so long, and at your age, your immune system becomes, less strong, so you're good. Unfortunately, she was wrong, because my MS, after 20 years, flared up a year ago. And I'll get to that. But I went through all this long period of time where my MS was in remission. Now, you may ask, why would parasites do that? Well, the researcher and doctor that I came when I moved back to Madison in 2011, Dr. Fleming, he was doing research on parasites in MS, and his view why MS is not prevalent, and they really have very few recorded cases around the equator. It has nothing to do with the warmth of that area. It's that most people live with parasites. So your immune system never goes awry because it's always focused on trying to battle the parasites, so it never goes awry and attacks your nerves and your myelin sheath. Because we know it's an autoimmune disease, and it makes perfect sense. Now, some researchers don't believe it, others strongly believe it, but that is my story, and it had a big change for me. Now, a year ago, after running for the Senate a year and a half ago, and running on fumes by the end, and then having told you're at 1 a.m. in the morning, and then at 4:30, you get 120,000 absentee ballots dropped in Milwaukee, and then you lose, and then realizing there was some shady business and all the rest. It was such a negative stress period of my life, it threw off my gut. I got gut problems that went on for about 4 months, and all they could say is, you have IBS. Well, what's IBS? Irritable bowel syndrome. Well, if they tell you have a syndrome, it means they don't know what the heck it is. So the best the doctor told me was, look, you probably got hit with a bacterial or a viral infection, and because your immune system was so suppressed because of all the negative stress, your body didn't kick it out normally like it normally would have, and as it lingered in there, it messed up your gut biome. As a result of my gut biome, literally a year ago in May, because this started in December of 24 all through April of 25, and then my MS started kicking back up. We now know that the gut plays a big role in MS. So when I got MS in 91, I ended up getting involved in the National MS Board, the International MS Board. I was donating money to research. I funded the first cell transplants in MS lesion sites at Yale. Didn't work, but we were trying to see the efficacy or the safety aspect. But all that time, there was never, ever a discussion about the gut. Never. And now, about 10, 15 years ago, and it's not just for MS, but it's for all kinds of diseases, we know the gut is so important. It controls your immune system. They call it the second brain. They even say it controls your emotions. Do you know you have more gut bacteria in your body, bacteria in your gut, than you have cells in your body? Now think of that. So we're just really hosts for a bunch of bacteria running around inside of our body. But it's the makeup of that is very impactful. In fact, they just have come out with a couple different studies, one clearly linking MS with your gut, and another one out of Germany that I read only 2-3 weeks ago, where they looked at 81 people with MS that had an identical twin that did not have MS. So these are people totally identical, genetic makeup. One had it, one didn't. And then they analyzed every aspect of that person to try to figure out what was the difference, what could have been the cause. And the only thing that they found, the ones with MS had two kind of gut bacteria strains that the others didn't. They all had kind of the same upbringing, same different things happened to them, but that was the one thing they found. So we're discovering more and more and more about the gut and the importance of the gut. So now let me go back to exercise and lifestyle. You know, we know that there's 4 key drivers for health. Exercise, probably the most important. Second, diet. It's our energy. Hugely important. Sleep. And then social connection, stress management, all those emotional things that play into your health. As I've always said, you know, your physical, your mental, and emotional health are all interlinked. We've all experienced that. When your physical health is being hit, it weighs on your mental health and your emotional health. If your emotional health is getting hit, I mean, I don't know about you, but most people that I know with MS, they first got diagnosed after going through some very negative stress period in their life. That is almost the case for almost all diseases, heart disease, strokes, all of that. It's some very negative stress point that all of a sudden, boom, it's like me with my gut biome that threw that off and then threw my MS off. So those are the 4 pillars. Yes, are there other things, supplements and things you can do to improve at the margin, but if you can make sure you make a commitment to exercise, make a commitment to clean, healthy eating, get rid of processed foods. I always say to people, shop on the perimeter of a grocery store. Everything in between, most of it's terrible for you. Eat whole, healthy foods. We're largely supposed to eat protein and fat. We're not really meant to be eating a lot of carbohydrates. Terrible for you. So make sure you get a good night's sleep. Which, by the way, to get a good night's sleep, the better your diet is and the more you exercise, the better you sleep. All these things are interconnected. And then that social connection. One thing I love about walking through this place is you guys all have this wonderful social connection here. It's not only coming here to exercise, But you see your friends and you see people that are going through the same challenge as you are, and you connect with them, and you got somebody to share your ups and downs with. That's so important for people that are dealing with any kind of disease. So I am so thrilled to be here and see this, because when I was on the National MS Board, my two big things that every board member knew is, why do we keep just letting researchers tell us where we should give them our money instead of us directing? We have enough knowledge now to say we want to explore this and that, and let's partner with drug companies to advance the ball in finding cures. And the other thing is, why aren't we talking and doing more studies on exercise and the impact exercise? Well, they finally got around to it, and it was done at the University of Utah in Salt Lake. And the big, huge study came out in 2004 that showed exercise was hugely beneficially impactful. Duh. That was my attitude. Duh. And it's like, it's your neurons. They also know the more you keep firing your neurons, your brain has different pathways. And even if that nerve is done or damaged, there's other neural pathways, because we do have something called plasticity in our brains. And plasticity just means the flexibility of your brain to rewire. You know, as kids, your brain's has total plasticity. And they thought by the time you were 20, you had no more plasticity in your brain. That's been proven wrong. So if you keep firing your neurons, keep moving, even if you can't move yourself, your brain is working at that. Do you know when somebody gets in a car accident and their spinal cord is severed, completely severed, they put them on this one drug and put them on motorized bikes to keep their body moving, the nerves start growing back towards each other. But they got to keep the body moving. So these are the key things that we got to do, and I applaud you all for doing. Every day, take control of your life. I was not going to let MS beat me. And that was one thing. I was just like, I'm going to kick this thing's butt. And every day I woke up with that determination. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about research. I'm going to give you my frustration, bad news, and then I'm going to give you really good news. So when I was 1991, I got on the National MS Board when I was 95. I was convinced that by the time we probably got to 2010, we'd have MS licked. We would have a cure. Well, we don't have a cure. Now, it is more complicated because the more they've studied MS, they know progressive MS is different than relapsing remitting, probably two different diseases, and there could be multiple different diseases under relapsing remitting. Like, me and my sister both have MS, which it's not a genetic disease, but there's probably a genetic predisposition, but we both had Epstein-Barr virus. My other siblings did. They know there's a definite link with Epstein-Barr and MS. But that doesn't mean that if you never had Epstein-Barr, you can't get MS. So that's why they think there may be 5, 6, 7 different diseases under the umbrella of MS, what we call MS. The other frustration, I would have thought, we would have made a lot more progress in doing cellular repair. That's why I funded the first cell transplantation back in '98 of Schwann cells into a lesion site. And I thought by 2010, we should be there by 2015 to really repair people. Well, here we sit in 2026. We haven't found a cure. We've done a lot with the new B-cell therapies, Ocrevus, Rituxan, all of that you know, and we can really tamp down relapsing remitting MS. But we haven't made much progress on repairing damage that's already been done for those people who are living with MS and have been impacted, like all of us. So that's the sad, frustrating thing, and I just had lunch in New York when I went out to see this MS doctor at the Tisch MS clinic where I had a spinal tap done. And while I was out there, I met with Tim Coetzee, who now runs the National MS Society, who I've known for a long, long time. And I expressed to Tim, I said, Tim, you know, I can't tell you, I'm really disappointed I'm sitting here in 2026 and we're not farther along. And he acknowledged it. And that's, we got into this long discussion about MS. But here's the positive thing. I do believe now, within 5 to 10 years, not only will we find the cure for MS, we will have major impact on helping remyelinating people. Now, yes. Now, you may ask me, why do you believe that when you had this belief before and things didn't change, but what is different between now and over the next 5-10 years? Because one, I've gotten back reviewing a lot of research, and research builds on itself. Like I said, 15 years ago, they weren't even talking about the gut. 10 years ago, they started discovering, not just for MS, but for everything, oh, the gut's like the second brain. Oh, the gut may play a role in depression, anxiety. Oh, the gut controls your immune system. So we have this whole base of knowledge that we're now focusing on. But also the technology we have now just keeps advancing exponentially on what they can do, what they can study. And it's going to start impacting drug trials, how quickly they can move drugs from the lab all the way through. And we've heard a lot about AI, and I have a lot of concerns about AI, what it may be to our labor market, could it wipe us all out, all the rest. But the one thing that AI can do, we've got all this research all over the world on MS. You can be Albert Einstein of the research field. You could have 10 Albert Einsteins. They could not process and digest all the research done everywhere around the world and stay on top of it. Because you have clinics in Germany, in Switzerland, in Japan, all throughout the US. I mean, the amount of places doing research. AI, today, and where it will be in a year to 2 years, can digest all of that information and synthesize it in a matter of a minute. That's freaky. And the fact is, we're now starting to see things. The clinic I went to, this doctor pulled my blood because they know transplanting most normal stem cells does not work for MS. And the only ones that probably will work is embryonic stem cells. But you know, there's always been an issue because you're dealing with fetus stem cells and all the rest. The guy who won the Nobel Peace Prize 10 years ago was able to take an adult's blood and get back to their own embryonic stem cell. So he literally drew my blood and said, in 6 months we'll have your embryonic stem cells that I can implant into you, and I'm waiting for the final approval by the FDA. Then I just read something about 2 other studies with 2 other molecules that are showing promise on remyelinating people. So the amount of research, it took a long time to build this base. And it builds and it builds. It's like the B-cell therapies. You know, originally all the stuff was based on T cells because T cells were the one attacking. But then they came and understood, wait, maybe B cells are playing a role. And then boom, the first B cell therapy had a bigger impact than any of the T cell therapies. That then led to Rituxan, and then led to Ocrevus, which are much more impactful than the old T cell therapies. So my point is, our knowledge base is expanding at an exponential rate. And you can see it starting, the signs of cracking through on all of these different issues. So I live today with more hope, and not just hope, but real base life knowledge that I think we're going to have a massive impact on being able to not only treat people with MS, but go back and help heal people with MS.
Yes.
So that's something we should all applaud. Hooray! Let's get there though. So back to health, to finalize my speech, and I'll get out of your way so you can all get back to doing your exercise and socializing and all the rest. We're all in control of our own life. I've always said, you know, there's 5 things that control the quality of a person's life. The decisions they make, because decisions have consequences. Good decisions get good outcomes, bad decisions get bad outcomes. The effort they put forth. Anybody who's been successful in anything in life has worked hard. You know, I don't care if you're Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, you were talented, but you worked harder in the gym shooting baskets. If you're a great academic, you worked hard. You're a great musician. I got to where I am in business because I frankly outworked most people. So you got to put forth the effort. Third, attitude. We wake up every day. We control whether we want to look at life in a positive way or negative. Some days it's hard. It's very hard to look at a positive, but we all have that choice, and attitude matters, and we all know that. And the more you believe you will do well, the better you will, because the mind is the most healing thing. I used to sit there and meditate of watching my lesion sites heal, and I'm back to doing that again. Fourth is fate. You can't control fate. I could get in this car, drive back to Madison today and get in a car accident and be paralyzed or killed or whatever may happen. So fate can be good or fate can be horrible. You know, I met my wife by accident. It was fate. I got MS. Okay, it's fate. But if you do those first 3 things right and you have the last thing, faith, there is something bigger up there in the world. I believe in God, Jesus, Christianity. Some people have different belief systems, but there is something bigger than us. And there's a place greater than here at some point in our lives. And you got to have faith, because you know what? People who have faith, they have been proven this, that they're better, they're more resilient, that they've overcome addiction problems, trauma, all the rest. So every day, get up in your life, make good decisions for yourself. What am I going to eat today? Am I going to go to the gym today? Go put forth the effort. I'm going to bike as hard as I can. I'm going to do whatever I can. Put the positive attitude on. You know, look at how beautiful a place that we get to live in. This country, this state. I'm driving over here with Nathaniel, just looking out, going, wow, what a beautiful planet we live on. Fate can't control it. We all got hit with this thing called MS. Some people didn't, but some people got hit with even worse things. You know, dying of cancer at a young age, or you know, there's a lot of horrible things that can happen. But have faith in something bigger. So I'll wrap up. Believe in yourself. Go exercise. This is a wonderful place, and I'm so proud to be supportive of everything that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
And whether or not you want to share, from a gut health perspective, how did you heal your gut, A? And B, are there any supplements that you take on a regular basis to aid that?
Yes. Okay. So she asked about gut health, and are there any supplements that I'll turn this back on, and I will answer a few questions because there are supplements. First, I'm not a big probiotic person because you don't know what if you're what's all in those probiotics, all the rest. They know fermented food has far more probiotics than any pill you can ever take. So eating pickled food is one of the most important things you can do. So my diet is largely protein-based and healthy fats. So like when I wake up in the morning, I'm eating Greek yogurt with some walnuts, some berries. I always eat berries in the morning. I may have salmon or avocado. I will have some keto granola, nut granola. My wife does make a great granola with oats, and that's fine. For lunch, I almost always eat a salad with protein on it, get my vegetable intake. And then at dinner, I'm blessed with a wonderful wife who can cook really well, so I always, some form of protein, typically like a potato or some rice, and then some kind of vegetable, asparagus. So I don't touch processed food. I don't drink calories and sodas. I drink water, green tea. My wife got this thing that has ginger and some kind of pepper that we pour into soda water that's delicious with a squeeze of lime. Sometimes kombucha I'll drink. So I don't touch fried food. I don't touch fast food. I eat whole foods, stuff that comes from the ground.
Do you take any supplements?
I do. Vitamin D, they know, is very important. You got to take high levels of vitamin D. I take a multivitamin. I take magnesium, potassium, because it's helpful after you exercise. I'll take CoQ10 because as you're getting older, I'd be happy to send over a supplement list. And this one doctor gave me, there's a few supplements that are really good for cell health that I've been on this regime. So I'll get that to sent on over, and you can post up what I'm all taking.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do you take any anti-parasitics?
I don't take anti-parasitics. I did when I had the 2 parasites, but I don't. Now that's interesting because there's also been a view that there could be a parasite playing a role in MS, a different kind of parasite. And I saw something about eggs and the myelin sheath and all the rest. Again, something that needs to be studied. So, like anything, parasites could be harmful and they could be beneficial. It just depends what the parasites are and how they're interacting. But no, I've never taken anti-parasitics unless, other than when I was 40.
In your research, have you found anything where they're close to a cure for Epstein-Barr virus?
You know what? I haven't. I haven't. But, it's interesting. I got a really bad case of mono, which is under the umbrella of Epstein-Barr when I was in 7th grade. Both me and my sister both got really sick with mono. And it's just ironic that both of us ended up with MS. And they've always known there's a very high correlation with mono and Epstein-Barr with MS. A very high correlation, but it's not a perfect correlation. So that's why, they believe that MS could be 9 different diseases. Anything else?
What's your exercise regimen look like?
My exercise regimen is on Monday, I do my pushing exercises, my chest, my shoulders, my triceps. On Tuesday, I do pulling motions, my back, my buys, and core. I do a lot of core. Wednesday, I'm either playing tennis, biking, or swimming. Thursday is leg day, the hardest day of all. Friday is arms. Saturday, it's something, again, tennis, swimming, biking. Sunday, I generally just make sure I take a long walk. I'm trying to get that day to be more of a day of rest, but if somebody says, hey, you want to go for a bike, hey, you want to go for a water ski, I'm addicted to exercise and doing outdoor stuff. So And then at night when I come home, I tend to stretch and trying to do posture things and all the rest, you know, when I'm kind of laying on the floor watching the television while my wife's laying on the couch.
Slalom or barefoot?
I used to barefoot, I can't anymore. I tried it, I bruised up my body, and I was like, oh, forget it. So I still slalom ski.
He's a slalom guy.
I don't know enough about that.
I might have missed it, but what makes you so confident that a cure will be coming in the next 10 years?
You did miss it. The research is building upon research, and AI is now going to be able to scrape all the research. You see, researchers, what they do, and sadly, too many of them in the university systems, it's all about producing papers. And they keep their research very close-looped. And that's another thing that I forced when I was at the MS Society is with others, starting to force these researchers to share what they're doing. But as I said earlier, you could have 10 Albert Einsteins, the most brilliant, you know, he was considered, him and Newton, the most brilliant people ever walked planet Earth. They could sit all day and try to read all the research and couldn't digest it all. AI will be able to scrape all that research and find commonalities. And just the amount of knowledge base, like where we've gone from T cells to B cells and all these different things. So it's all building, and now you're starting to see some of the things. And they can tell you about, you know, what just happened with me with pulling my blood, where they're going to turn it into embryonic stem cells. So again, I'm very angry that we're not more advanced, but I'm actually I was so mad and pissed off and going, why aren't we more? And, you know, poor Tim Coetzee, you know, and we've been friends forever, and he's running the MS Society, and I'm like, Tim, why, you know, we should be. And then the more I started digesting, the more I'm like, okay, I see the end coming in sight. And I really do believe that. This is not false hope. This is grounded on, you know, a lot of analysis now that, you know, I was funding my foundation was originally founded on funding research in MS, but then I started pivoting to saving kids around the world. We got 10 Hovde homes. We rescue kids out of sex trafficking, slavery in Africa, on Lake Volta in Ghana, to a whole host of things. And that's what Nathaniel helps overseas. And I still would do stuff in MS, but I wasn't up as current as I was back in the 90s. Once all of a sudden I got hit with MS again this last year, I'm back diving deep into all the research that's coming and reading and digesting. So again, I feel very hopeful. Am I going to run for the Senate again? Well, you know, a lot of people want me to run for governor, and I'm flattered by that, but unless they clean up what happened to me on election night at 4:30 a.m. And clean up our election process, I don't know if I want to put myself through that. That was very heartbreaking. I got called at 1 a.m., welcome to the Senate, you've won by all, statistically it would be impossible, and then somehow 120,000 absentee ballots get dropped and she gets 85% of them. There was never a time in Milwaukee that she ever got that. In one of the precincts, I was 50-50, where there was a Slavic community. But there was nothing I could do about it. So I'm not opposed to running again, and if I got there, I would do everything I can to advance research on a whole host of things. But it was really heartbreaking to go through that, and all the stuff they ran 2 phony candidates, the America First candidate, which was a Democrat plant that took off 20,000 votes, that was all funded by Democrats. You know, if you showed up to the booth and you saw American First, you would think he was connected with Trump, right? So all the games that they did, and you know, phony lawsuits thrown against my companies. I always say to people, no matter how ugly and bad you think politics are, multiply it by 10 and maybe you'll get there. So I may do it again, but I want to see the election process cleaned up a bit.
think we all.
All right, one last question I got, because I gotta get running.
So with relapsing and primary, do you think you're kind of tackling them both? I have primary, and it's like everything seems to be like relapsing remitting.
Yeah.
The majority of people, that's who they're gonna. Do you think you're kind of?
The vast majority, she's asking, I'm gonna say what your question, she said, are they focusing on primary progressive MS? Because most of the discussion has always been about relapsing remitting. And I'll be honest with you, most of the focus was on relapsing remitting because that was 30% and it was a bigger population base. And at first they didn't know there was they now know it's two different diseases. Now the focus is now shifting because of things like Ocrevus and Rituxan and all these things. Now the shift is more moving to primary progressive. So there is a lot more focus on primary progressive than there was in the past. And if you look at research dollars by the MS Society and others, it's moving much more in the direction of primary progressive.
Great. Thank you.
Hey everyone, have a wonderful day. And go watch USA!